Good afternoon. I'm out here with my dad. It's chilly today, so I've got my hat on. He's got his hat on, but I hear up in Pennsylvania and Ohio it's been snowing, so no
Really?
snow here.
It's not too bad in the sun.
But we're here at, actually it's going to be reversed. I should change it around. We're here at the British Cemetery. I'm going to turn it around. We're here at the British Cemetery because today would have been the 78th ceremony of the British Cemetery being established here, basically. But of course it was canceled due to COVID. But we're going to walk around and just tell you a brief history of the graveyard. Yeah, I can't talk today. And also, we're going to talk a little bit. I touched on Old Diver at one point, and then David Williams. So let's go here. I'm going to let Philip start to talk.
Well, let's walk down to the
grave first.
The graveyard first, and then we'll come back and explain these.
Yeah, and every time I come, I forget that it needs some work. The fence got a bit destroyed.
Yeah, I hadn't seen it since the hurricane. These graves are from British sailors whose vessel was torpedoed on May 11th, 1942. The name of the vessel was the Bedfordshire, and the British government had loaned a number of armed British trawlers that had been used in the North Atlantic. But during World War II, they loaned those to the United States to patrol the waters off the East Coast because there was so much German U-boat activity. And this particular vessel, Lieutenant Thomas Cunningham, whose grave is here where the red flowers are, he actually met Wahab Howard in Norfolk, Virginia, I think it was a couple weeks before his body washed up on Ocracoke. And so Wahab Howard was able to identify him. And the other person who was identified is in the back left-hand corner, Stanley Craig, who was the telegraphist for the Bedfordshire. He had his dog tags on and they were able to identify him. And then later, I can't remember whether it was just a day or two later, two other sailors washed up on the beach, bodies did, and they presumed that they were from the Bedfordshire, but they weren't absolutely certain. But all the evidence pointed to the fact that they were obviously British sailors and probably had come from the Bedfordshire. So every year for now 78 years, the community, along with the British Royal Navy and the United States Coast Guard, holds ceremony to memorialize these people who had given their lives in service of the United States during World War II.
In service of the Allies.
The Allies,
yeah,
in service of the Allies, exactly.
The United States. And usually there is a flag flying here. It is not there. The Coast Guard takes care of it for the most part, but since Dorian, everything has been kind of up in the air, and the normal upkeep has not necessarily happened. Not for lack of care, it's just been a challenge to get everything put together. These were the markers I remember growing up, but yeah, I was informed by my dad that they are not the original markers.
The original markers were wooden crosses. And then some years later, I don't remember exactly what year, these, I guess they're concrete markers that were put up. But a number of years ago, the British War Graves Commission took responsibility for this graveyard, and they wanted markers that would match the ones that they have installed in various cemeteries all over the world. So they moved these crosses off, installed their markers, and afterwards a number of Ocracoke residents who remembered these, one of them brought back, so they installed these here at this memorial that lists the name of all the crew members of the Bedfordshire. So there are no bodies buried here, but these at one time had marked the graves of the for sailors.
And I'm going to just go up here so you can see this. I don't know if anybody can read that or if you can do a screenshot of that if you want to read more of it later, but that's the story of the crosses. So there you go. So the ship actually went down, was it May 14th? Was the actual day?
I thought it was May 11th.
I can't remember the actual day that it went down, but this is always this weekend that they do the ceremony.
And you can see on here Sub-Lieutenant Thomas Cunningham, the third name down. His wife was pregnant with their first child when he was killed during that submarine attack. And his child was born several months after his death. And what was it in the
75th anniversary, so 3 years ago.
His son came and participated in this ceremony along with the British Royal Navy and the Canadian Navy and the U.S. Coast Guard.
And you were right, May 11th. I've been told on
Okay.
Shall we walk over here? Do you want to talk about David Williams first or Old Diver?
Well, let's do David Williams. This is a Williams family cemetery next to the British cemetery. And David Williams, Captain David Williams, and they're over here.
Oh, they're over here. I assume they were the big
his wife, Alice Wahab Williams, are buried here. You may remember when we did the talk on Howard Streets, at the Howard Street cemeteries, I mentioned that my great-grandfather James Howard was the first keeper of the U.S. Life-Saving Station on Ocracoke, which was located at the north end of Ocracoke. But I think it was 1903, the Life-Saving Service decided to add another station here in the village, where the current, or very close to where the current NCAT building is, which was originally a Coast Guard building. But behind it was the original life-saving station that was established here in the village. And Captain David Williams was the keeper of that station. And his house, it was his and his wife Alice, their house is what is now the Ocracoke Preservation Society Museum.
And it wasn't in that location originally. The Preservation Society Museum wasn't. It actually sat back on the property where the Anchorage Inn is now. But in the 80s, when the folks bought that property to build the Anchorage, they didn't want the house there anymore. And so they donated the house to the preservation. Preservation moved it, fixed it up, and I believe 93 was when they finally opened up the Preservation Society. So that's why it's the house museum. It's set up basically how it would have been in the 1940s.
Okay.
Now we'll go over here to Old Diver. Ooh, sorry, trees were a little low. I got tangled up.
In 1913, as you can see in September 23 of 1913, a commercial merchant vessel offshore of Ocracoke, and I'm trying to remember, it was from some Scandinavian country, I think it was Norwegian, a Norwegian vessel, had some issues. They were taking on water, and Augustus Abner Maguire, who hailed originally from Ireland, was a sailor on that vessel, and he had trained as a diver. And of course, this was years ago when they had the full diving suit with a helmet and the hoses that went up to the vessel to pump air down to the diver. He went down to examine the vessel and to find out where the leak was. And while he was down there, he indicated that there was some sort of a problem. I'm not sure how he did that, by pulling on a rope or something. And when they brought him up on board the vessel, they did what they could to try to revive him, but they think he had a heart attack while he was underwater.
Yeah, when they pulled him up, he was limp and lifeless, right?
That's right. And they tried to revive him, but they were unable to do that. But instead of burying him out to sea, the captain of the vessel contacted the Coast Guard or the life-saving station at Ocracoke and asked if he could be buried here. We're not exactly sure where his grave is. It's somewhere in this
Are
vicinity.
you saying I might be standing on it?
We might be. We're not sure where. It was originally a cedar post that marked his grave, and at his foot were placed his diving boots. But over the years, the cedar post rotted away and the diving boots got moved. There's one of them still at the Preservation Museum. And when we've had this marker established here, there was nobody who could remember exactly where the grave was. So we put it here, and the inscription down at the very bottom, old diver, what do you say? And he says nothing, comes when that cedar post was here in his diving boots. Some of the older children would try to scare younger children. They'd hide behind grave markers. And when younger children would come by the grave, they'd holler from the distance, old diver, what do you say? And that would scare the younger children, and they'd run away, and after they were running away, someone would yell, and he says nothing.
And then they'd skirt her even faster away.
For years, there would be people who were afraid to walk by old diver's grave after dark. But he's buried here somewhere, so be careful when you come up this direction.
Yeah, you never know what you're going to find around here. And we're not going to talk about this grave site right now. We'll save this one for later. I think Woody Billings keeps this site up now. It's really a beautiful old cemetery with a lovely live oak back there. And we'll talk about that sometime later. But for now, I guess we're done for now. Whoop, I'm going to turn around so you can see us and we can wave goodbye. Whoop, with my finger.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.